Hey everyone, old school Pokemon here. I'm back again with the PokeFlipz premiere, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan. How are we doing today, Dan?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good.
So, as we normally do, we have our pre-recorded where we answer your questions from the last episode. I believe we have 5 or 6 of them this time. Let's get right into them. So, first question comes from Jamie Chris VA. How can I get into the Collectacon Discord group? Nick and I talked about this pre-stream a little bit, or pre-recording a little bit. We don't really want to just link it right in the description on YouTube for fear of maybe bots coming in or anything like that. Reach out to one of us on Discord. I'm assuming you're probably in Oak's Discord or one of the various Discords. So just find us on Discord, send us a DM, and we'll send you the link. Next question, Nick, if you want to take.
Yeah, so PokePiz? Question for Nick. What's your max you would be willing to pay for a black label no damage Ninetales? I don't think there's ever going to be a black label no damage Ninetales since there's only 110 out there in 20 something years. Can't see that happening. But honestly, for me, I'm not a huge BGS fan, so I would buy it and then crack it and send it to buy it and then send it to CGC or PSA. But as far as like my max goes, I've always said like 25,000 for a PSA 10, so probably around there. I don't think I could spend much more than that. That would have to be up there for me.
Nick's out here optimizing black labels down into PSA 10s. You heard it here first.
That's how desperate I am.
Oof, wild. I would probably pay like 12% over CGC 8 pricing.
Wow.
That's about where I'd be at. I don't know what that is, but that's about where I'd be. I don't value the conditional rarity, as you can see. Not much of a slab buyer, more of a slab seller. Noiser PXE says, I have a question about increasing gross revenue in relation to dead inventory or inventory of itself. Do you guys keep increasing the amount of listings on your eBay, of which inherently would increase your overall inventory, whether dead or not? Is it better to focus on minimizing your inventory while making sales? I guess a better question is, do you guys have a % target of inventory in relation to gross revenue? The higher, the better. I mean, the question you're asking is with respect to inventory, like turnover ratio. And Nick and I had a little conversation on this pre-record. I don't think I'll share exactly what mine is. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's really low. I've mentioned many times my backlog. One big focus I have in the coming weeks and months is repricing a lot of old, stale, and kind of like this dead inventory. A lot of the prices of the way buy it now listings work, if the price of an item is flat or up, especially up, it will just sell out and be gone, right? So cards that are moving up take care of themselves. Cards that are moving down need some maintenance. They need some work. So I have hundreds of listings more than 6 months old. I have hundreds of listings more than a year old. I'm going to go through, delist. Some of them need new photos, new descriptions, set new pricing. I'm not going to put like a firm concrete thing. I'm not going to get to the point where I like auction very regularly, if at all. But I want to get rid of most things under 6 months. So if you were to get rid of every item in exactly 6 months, your inventory turnover ratio would be around 2. Mine is less than that right now. And I was just looking really quickly on some like market analysis website, and I'm like a lot of retail and a lot of like grocery stores, you're talking in the high single digits, if not like the low 10s to 20s, somewhere in there. I'm sub 2, and you're in the vicinity of like, there was one, it was like the laboratory equipment industry. I used to be a chemical engineer buying centrifuges, buying analytical balances, buying drying ovens and things like that. I sell my Pokemon cards at the same rate that those suppliers sell their specialty scientific goods. So I want to get more a bit higher than that moving ahead. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm in a similar position as you. I don't keep track of that whatsoever. Something I do need to get better at. My philosophy has always just been get it listed on eBay and forget about it. That's kind of how I've always been to a fault. Once it's listed on eBay, it kind of gets forgotten about. I occasionally go through and update pricing, but definitely need to get better with that and kind of increase that turnover rate on the majority of stuff. One thing to note for myself though on that is it really depends on what you're selling. Like for me, with the bulk commons and uncommons, I have some of those cards sitting on eBay that haven't sold in I was looking at this the other week, but they haven't sold since I originally listed them on eBay back when I went full time with Pokemon, which was two and a half ish years ago. So I have some stuff sitting on eBay that's been on there for absolutely forever, but it's already at 99 cents. I can't go lower than that, and I don't want to just end the listing because eventually someone will come along and buy that one card. So I'll just leave it on there. But for like higher end stuff, graded cards, sealed products, stuff like that, it would be nice to kind of get a better turnover rate on that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And unlike Dan over here, I'm not afraid to run auctions. Very very bullish on auctions. Starting to agree with Z and G Emporium over there.
And
auctions are the future.
If you run a weekly auction, I mean, if you turn over your and James isn't really inventory, right? It's on behalf of other people. But if you auction everything as you get it in, if you auction 52 times a year, once a week, you're talking turnover ratios up in the 50s, right? And the way, for anyone not understanding what we're talking about, I mean, I think he phrased it in a way that it's fairly clear. But basically, if you just take your average inventory value and you divide that into your total gross sales, like say you have gross sales of $120,000 a year, and you have an average inventory of $10,000. That would be like a turnover ratio of 12. That would mean you're selling your whole inventory every month. Now, certain cards you're going to have for 6 months, certain cards you're going to have for 6 hours. Some are going to sell quicker, some are going to sell slower, but overall it's kind of like an average thing. So just in case anyone isn't familiar with like the terminology. But yeah, very interesting question.
That question is. Oh,
no, go ahead. I just said it was an interesting question.
Yeah, no, it is. It is for sure. I would be curious to know what Going Twice, Travis, where he's constantly buying. How quickly does that stuff turn around? I would imagine his is really good.
Yeah, I would think he's at least 10, 20 times higher than ours. He and like your typical LGS, like they don't really hang on to a lot of stuff intentionally. Most of it's just always listed available for sale. I've had somewhat of a backlog. Again, this is where some people will pick on me and tell me that I invest in this stuff, but I try to have everything listed. I just don't have the manpowers or the time to. And there are a few, when you have certain higher end things that you are listing significantly above market or intentionally withholding from the market for some set amount of time, that really skews your turnover ratio down, right? Like my turnover ratio kind of spiked a little bit last year, moving a few of those bigger pieces that I'd held multi-year. And whether you go off your original, you should really go off your original cost basis. So I guess it wouldn't be so drastic, but I don't have a firm handle on what mine exactly is. I mean, I can roughly approximate it, but very, very low, I will say. Noiser PXE had another question. I guess if you want to take this one first, if you can read it on your screen.
Yeah. What is both your opinions on the demand of rare cards, i.e. for position, 25th anniversary creatures deck, illustration contrast Zora and Art Academy cards, snap cards that were unachievable from the beginning with no real connection to the masses, yet may or may not have historical significance compared to a first edition Zard? Do you guys prefer obtaining certain rare cards over others? And if so, what determines your guys' decision? For me personally, I have absolutely zero interest in going after any of those pre-production or test cards or trophy cards, prize cards, any of that type of stuff. I have zero interest in collecting or owning or anything with that stuff. And the reason for that is just because I don't have an interest in it. I've always enjoyed just English set cards, specifically WotC. So that's what I enjoy. That's what I know. I don't know enough about these types of cards to get into them, and I don't have as much passion towards them to want to learn about these cards and become like fluent with the different release numbers and pricing and all of that stuff. So for me, it's just I'm gonna stick with English set cards. There's plenty of money to be made with that type of stuff. So that's where I'm gonna stick.
For me, like the 4-position only, the match print, some of those like save from the shredder type situations. I guess the one exception to that would be like I do have some uncut sheets, but I do intend to move those at some point. Getting back to my low turnover ratio, I don't even have them listed, and I want to sell them, but they're not listed, so they're not gonna sell. But anyways, as far as those ones go, not really interested. If they could pass through my hands as part of like a flip, that would be great. I guess that's where I'm at with everything now. I mean, I do own Art Academy still. I have owned more at one point than I do today because I have sold some. Art Academy cards were very achievable out of the gate. Some of those were selling for 100, 150 bucks, 200 bucks. That was at a time though where 100, 150, 200 bucks was a lot more money than it is today relative to what else it could get you. Snap cards were never obtainable. They were always extremely expensive. The creatures deck, there was 1 or 2 sales that went pretty low relative to what they do today. But overall, like, I like them, but they're like super niche, and there are opportunities to make like big flips off of them. There are opportunities to kind of like make a big splash in the social media scene, interacting with those things. But as a part collector, as just someone who appreciates the hobby and all that, like I would love to have one pass through my hands, but they're just more valuable than I would ever be able to justify like locking away into a PC. And I just have no interest in that because the market significantly values those cards like more than me. So they're just not anything I'm going to PC and lock away. Whereas like the base for Zard, this is actually the first time in several years I've not owned a single base for a Zard. And I'm getting like an itch over it. I sold my CGC 8 in Dallas, and I'm feeling it. I'm like, I don't own a base for a Zard. I need to fix that. I need to get one. So that'll probably be happening at some point. It'll probably be like a low grade PSA one to optimize into a CGC slab, or it's not going to be like an investment. It's going to be a flip, raw to grade, something of the sort. But because that's like the whole playground, the nostalgic ties, this and that. Other than that, like, yeah, no deep interest in the others other than like I can appreciate the rarity and the scarcity and all that. John hit us with a very lengthy question, very interesting, very lengthy question. So I'm a PhD student and would like your input and perspective on job prospects. I will just say that, like, I mean, all the disclaimers, you know, you love them. Nick and I are not like life coaches. We are not financial or life advisors. Please do not take like this is entertainment only. This is what we would do in our case. Like, don't and I don't think you will, but I just feel the need to put that out there. I have my eyes set on academia, and becoming a professor, but the starting pay is approximately $90,000. This job would be very satisfying and give me great fulfillment. I can also get a job in industry with a starting pay of $125 to $150K, but I would likely not have as much fulfillment in life. Becoming a professor is notorious for not having the best work-life balance, but I believe I would like the autonomy and fulfillment out of the career. Just for background knowledge, I would likely always be able to get this sort of job in industry, but it would be very unlikely to go from industry to academia. What are your thoughts and perspective on taking this significant of a pay cut? What would you do? Although I gave specific details for my situation, I think this could make for a good discussion that others can relate to. I feel like I could talk about this for an hour, and I will try not to. I will try to stay more succinct than that. But the first thing I would do is give you a little bit of pushback. I don't know what industry. Well, you said PhD student. So, I mean, you can do a PhD in like a lot of different fields. A lot of people hear PhD and they think doctor. I don't know whether this is like doctor type things or not, because you can get a PhD in, I mean, a PhD in chemistry, a PhD in whatever you want. I know that as a chemical engineer, most of my professors were not like career professors. Most of my chemical engineering professors had been in industry, if not for like several years, like maybe for decades. I mean, I can specifically think of my OChem professor was decades in like a certain lab, and my like a couple of my more favorite chemical engineering professors were in like big, I don't want to like name companies and this and that, but they were in like big known companies, petrochemical. They were in like different big known brands. So first thing I would push back is like, maybe you could make the transition from industry to professor more so than you think, or maybe I'm just completely off on that. I genuinely don't know. Just my little anecdote there. But on that note, when I quit my job as a chemical engineer, short term, I am making more than I did. Long term, I am unlikely to have the same. Obviously, there's no way of knowing the future had I stayed as a chemical engineer, but where I was in my company, where I was probably headed, I probably had better salary prospects 5 years out, 10 years out, especially 20 years out, and things like that. Who knows what would have happened, but I took the route of more freedom. It was easier to take the route because short term it's more pay too, but like longer term it feels like less stability, and it feels like less income longer term, less income lifetime. I mean, maybe I can do really well here, maybe I can smash it out of the park and do better, but it all depends on what you value at the end of the day. I value freedom. I value being my own boss, setting my own schedule. My wife's a teacher. My kids obviously are in school, going to school soon. Having summers off, having postal holidays off, school holidays off, as a family, being able to travel more, do more things more freely, not having to take my 2 weeks vacation time and schedule it when my boss allows me to schedule it, and this and that, and be on call overnights for the chemical processes that I used to run. So like, those are some of the considerations I took in. But for me, like 90K to 150K, if you're going to be happier, 60K is a lot of money, but life is short and money isn't everything. Money is an ends to a means to an end. It is not like the sole goal, right? Money facilitates. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it like, I'm stumbling over my words a bit, trying to find the right exact words, but I think it's understood what I'm trying to say. It's hard to say how much more miserable would you be, how much more happy would you be at 90K. Like there's some amount of happiness, there's some amount of all that makes it worthwhile to take less money. I just don't know for you. I don't know your other scenarios. I don't know your family situation, if there's anything like that. Those are the kind of details that you need to use to tip the scales, I guess, one way or the other. If you want to add anything, I'll probably come back around with a little bit more, but I'll let you go before I go too long.
Yeah, my answer would be similar to yours. I personally, I like the idea of the professor. I know you're obviously working more than the hours that you're teaching, but having all the school vacations and summers off and all of that stuff is a really nice perk right there. Whereas if you go into industry, you're probably only going to have a couple weeks vacation every year. So that'd be something I would consider right there. Time off is definitely something I consider to be important. But yeah, for me, I was the same as Dan. I graduated college, started working on the ship, and I absolutely loved that job. For the first 5 years, 4.5, 5 years, absolutely loved it. It's funny. I was like, I'd have conversations with people about going full time with Pokemon and whether or not I would do it. And this was back in like 2017, 2018. I always told everyone, absolutely not. I love being able to just shut down my eBay store, forget about Pokemon for 3-4 months, and go off working on the ship, and then come back home, reopen it, and do Pokemon for 3-4 months, and forget about the ship. So for a while there, I had the best of both worlds. But then I got sick of working on the ship. I was enjoying Pokemon more and more. So I decided to leave my shipping job and go full time with Pokemon, which involved a substantial pay cut on my end. It would be a stretch for me to make what I made on the ship in Pokemon. But I understood that going into this, and I went into this not for the money, but because I truly enjoyed it and all the freedoms that come with running your own business, as well as the stress. But yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily about the money. So I would definitely lean towards not completely forgetting about the money, but kind of having that as a secondary aspect to what you enjoy doing more. Both of those salaries are really, really good salaries. So I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about a $50,000 less salary. Because in my opinion, both of those are really good. So I would lean more towards what's going to make you happy, and what do you want to do and pursue in life.
And one big point that I intended to make too, and then I forgot because I just got so deep down my rant or whatever. If your cost of living is $130,000 a year, you need to take the industry job, right? Or you need to find a way to lower it. Like, I have no idea what your situation is, and it's very important what the answer to that is. If your cost of living is more than the professor's salary will pay, and you will just be miserable because you'll be being crushed by credit card debt and this and that and all that, like, if you can't feasibly live on $90K, which some people can, some people can't. I mean, I have a family of 4 living in a fairly low cost of living area in a high cost of living state, New York. We live on like $50K a year as a family of 4. So for me, between these two numbers, one being more fulfilling, one being more like time, for me, it's like easy. I would go the professor route, especially because the other point that I forgot to make that I wanted to make, I kind of pushed back on whether or not you might be able to pivot from industry to professor. And if for some reason your industry you can't, that leans even more into the professor side, right? Because like it's kind of like a booster pack, unless you want to get like devious and unless you want to talk about bad type of things. Once it's opened, you can't like unopen it, right? I mean, theoretically, people do, and people do bad things. But given that the professor thing sounds like you could do it for a few years, if it's not enough money, if it doesn't pan out, if it's not as fulfilling as you thought, you have the option to then go onto industry. Whereas if you go to industry, you're opening the booster pack and there's no way back. Presuming that's a correct judgment. So given that the professor has the option to ultimately like, okay, this wasn't all it was cracked up to be, so I'm going to go on to the next one. Whereas if you like, you know what I'm saying? You can, there's a way out of being a professor. There's not a way out of being in industry, I guess, or at least maybe not a way out is a overly firm thing to say, but like not a way back into being a professor is what was framed in the original question. So I think that's just another check in the win column for being a professor. Whereas you just got to do like pros and cons. You got to map it all out. How much money do you need to live? And yeah.
Good question there.
Very good. And I mean, it sounds like the two you're at a fork in the road in your life, and the two paths seem pretty solid. It sounds like a pretty good position to be in, choosing between these two paths. Definitely wishing you the best on whatever you choose, and who knows, maybe 10 years down the line you'll be quitting whatever job you end up going into and selling Pokemon full time. Who knows?
You truly never know.
Yeah. Life can life can throw all kinds of curveballs at you. You never know where you're gonna be. But yeah, with that, that's all of our questions. Anything else to add? We will be going live very, very shortly with Ray. With remind me the name. You got his logo, all that good stuff.
Oh God. Shiny. I think it's shiny cards and collectibles.
Putting you on the
It
spot.
might be shining.
Let me check my DMs. We will be live with you shortly with shining cards and collectibles. It will be evident from the thumbnail, but yeah, I don't want to drag this out. Let's get you shifted right over.
One more thing. We did get you guys, or we saw some comments about the eBay usernames.
That's right.
And I definitely appreciate that. We're going to review one of you guys on the next premiere. So not this one, but the next one coming up when we don't actually have a guest.
Yeah, that'll be an every other episode type deal that we do. So just once every 4 weeks, the episodes in which we do not have a guest. So yeah, look forward to that. Appreciate everyone dropping the comments with their eBay usernames. We will catch you all over in the live.